So now that we've had time to get over the craziness that was Sunday Night Football, got some time to look back at the film, and I do think that there is actual hope for Ben Roethlisberger to get back to some level of playing very good quarterback or even just good quarterback level for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's vital that he does if they want to make a run this year. Again, I'm not even talking about Super Bowl. I'm talking about getting back into the mix. They're currently the 8th seed in the AFC playoffs, but I think that he could be a big factor into them getting right back in the mix in the coming weeks. It's going to be a serious challenge. But let's talk about it right here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things of the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, this show is brought to you, or as you can find this show, on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. If you're watching this video on YouTube, hit the like button, please. Hit the subscribe button to the YouTube channel. All those things really help us out. But let's get into the nitty gritty here because, oh, by the way, we thank you for making us your first podcast listen every single day. Check out all we got on the Locked On Podcast Network because we have a lot of great content there for all of our listeners and viewers. Now, let's dive into Ben Roethlisberger because, I went over all the details and the instant reactions of Sunday Night Football, Sunday night going into Monday morning. But now we've had time to kind of digest things, take a step back. We can look at, okay, what's actually, what actually is the deal right now with the Steelers? Well, let's take some analysis into how they played in this game. And one thing's for sure, Ben Roethlisberger, this is the best that he saw the field. I said that night out, but now we finally have all the passing charting in and the official numbers and everything. When you look back at, I want to say his previous game before I say what it was in this game, so that you understand the magnitude of where a difference level was. When the Steelers played the Bears, Ben Roethlisberger threw in between the numbers, according to the pass charting of Pro Football Focus. He threw in between the numbers beyond the line of scrimmage a total of 11 times. He completed 5 of those passes for about 84 yards. So 11 attempts, 5 completions, 84 yards. Okay, cool. Against the Chargers, that number went up significantly. Well, all those numbers went up significantly. He attempted 21 passes between the numbers beyond the line of scrimmage, completed 12 of them for 123 yards. Now, granted, no touchdowns there, and people are going to say, well, Chris, 123 passing yards, that doesn't sound like a whole lot. Hang on there, partner. What he does when that happens, that opens up the rest of the field. Now, those passes that he wants to throw down the sideline or hitting the flat, now defenders have to think, wait a minute, if I just leak out there immediately like defenses have been in recent weeks, if I just go right out there, I'm asking for him to hit the middle part of the field. This is why we've been stressing that for Ben Roethlisberger to hit the middle of the field. And I say we, it's because it's not just me. It's anyone that does content on the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you're a film analyst, if you're a beat writer, if you're a YouTuber, I'm sure anyone out there has said this. I'm not trying to take a unique spot here. I'm just giving y'all the facts. This is a critical part of the Steelers passing offense, and it needs to become a thing. And at least in this game, you started to see that come from Ben Roethlisberger. It helped convert third downs. It helped move the chains. And again, it forced defenses to think more. Again, that Chargers defense that they went up against, yes, it was the worst rushing defense in the NFL, but people kept skipping over. It's also the 5th best passing defense. Derwin James is a bad man. Nasir Adderley, I love what he brings to the table. Asante Samuel Jr., they got ballers. Chris Harris Jr., they got ballers in that secondary. And then threw 3 touchdowns and no interceptions on them dudes. Now, Of course, we can all joke about how maybe it's just that he doesn't need to practice ever again because he didn't practice all week because he had COVID. But to me, I think maybe it was just a matter of stepping away from the game a little bit, getting a chance to refocus, come back in, because sometimes you're just having if you're a person who's ever trained at a skill. And I'm not saying that I've trained at a skill like to the level that Ben Roethlisberger has at all, but like you know what I'm talking about. Whether it's you're like trying to learn how to juggle, or you're trying to master a musical piece, or you're trying to do something even stupid. If you're trying to learn a move in a video game, you'll practice it so hard for weeks or for hours or for however long that project takes, and you can't get it. You step away from it for a little bit, you come right back, and all of a sudden it all clicks for you. Maybe that's what Ben's going through. And if you remember me on this podcast, I've said all this time, I refuse to say that Ben was done or washed or anything like that, even when I was criticizing him, because I'm one of the people that I will be straight up about Ben. I won't hate on him, but I will let you know when he's messing up. And I said, I'm not going to declare this guy dead or done or washed or any of those things that a lot of people want to do because it's fun and it makes good headlines, because I didn't think that was going to be the case. Because I did think that Ben still had some performances like this in him. And we've seen it time and time and again. Look back to 2014 when the offense started clicking out of nowhere. He started putting up serious numbers. They found some things that worked, and then all of a sudden he was like, okay, this is what I needed to open up the offense. And then you loved Ben Roethlisberger with Todd Haley. 2017, that game against the Jaguars. After that, some things started to click, and then he went on a phenomenal tear for the Steelers. This is who Ben Roethlisberger has been all his career. He does hit some serious slumps that make you scratch your head, and the biggest, I guess, stressor here was that this slump was going to be, was potentially the last slump because of how old he is. He's 39 years old. You don't know if this is just a slump or if this is just the he's done phase. I mean, we just saw quarterbacks like Eli Manning, Drew Brees, and other guys go through that phase, and Steelers fans were hoping that this wasn't it for Ben. It at least didn't look like that on Sunday Night Football. And yes, that pass to Chase Claypool that he hung in the air and it should have been a touchdown was a problem. But you can flip that for the two passes to Deontay Johnson on that touchdown drive down the sideline and in the end zone. Both were perfect strikes with the perfect amount of air time, the perfect placement, the heat on the ball so that only Johnson could get to them. He does have the potential. And this is what I said in training camp, because this is what I saw in training camp. It's not that the arm stinks. He has to get back into his rhythm. And maybe that just takes time with Matt Canada. But maybe that's also the problem there. Because there's a lot of people saying, hey, Matt Canada, stop calling the plays. Ben's calling the plays now. I have some thoughts on that, because I think that that's actually a very interesting talking point that happens around this time of the year every year if you're a Steelers fan when it comes to Ben Roethlisberger and his offensive coordinator. We're going to talk about that in just a minute here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. Be right back real soon. And back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, keeping it rolling with you on a Tuesday. Unfortunately, we couldn't have Tony Serino. We will have him on the Wednesday episode before Thanksgiving. Also, happy early Thanksgiving to all you out there. If some of you are traveling, travel safe. I know airports and everything is going to be kind of wild with, this is post-pandemic. I guess still kind of pandemic, but you know what I mean. People are traveling for Thanksgiving this year, and it's a lot more open. Be safe. But back to my part of the conversation here. Ben Roethlisberger, Matt Canada. The offense wasn't clicking in the first half, really the first two and a half quarters. And people were saying, oh, Matt Canada, he stinks. And listen, this isn't me capping for Matt Canada right now. So hold on, I'm getting to my point. But as soon as the offense started working, I saw lots of tweets, lots of comments, lots of bravado from Steelers fans that were like, oh, this is Ben calling the plays now. He's calling the plays. And maybe he was. I'm not calling none of y'all wrong or stupid or liar, but I've now seen this with about 4 offensive coordinators. I remember when I was in college, people said that whenever Bruce Arians was the offensive coordinator, then all of a sudden things clicked. It was, oh, Ben's calling the plays. Then when Todd Haley came along, and at first he was, people were saying, oh, his offense stinks because the Steelers weren't finding a way to click. Then all of a sudden they get Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown emerges. They get Martavis Bryant, and they're one of the best offenses in the NFL. And then then whenever they're moving, I hear it's Ben calling the plays. He's the reason for success. And then with Randy Fichtner, same thing. Randy Fichtner originally comes out. I love the horizontal aspect to the offense that he brought in. He forced Ben to check it down a little bit more, take the plays that are in front of him, let his playmakers be playmakers with the ball in their hands. But then when things started to go sour, it was Randy Fichtner's a bad coordinator. And when things started to pick up after they went sour, it was Ben's calling the plays. And here we are with the same situation. I'm here to tell you it's not always that simple. Now, there may be times where Ben steps in and says, hey, we're going to run this. And I guarantee that does happen sometimes, but it's not a thing where it's like, hey, Matt Canada, go sit in timeout over there. Sit on there with a dunce cap. We're letting Ben call all the plays from now on. You're just a figurehead. It's not always like it's not like that. There are going to be some plays where it's like, hey, Ben, you have the liberty right here because we need to move and we trust you. But to me, that's part of the issue here is that I think Steelers fans try to I wrote about this on dkpittsburghsports.com in my live cues that I did Monday. A fan asked me, like, why is it that offensive coordinators are always blamed in Pittsburgh? And I get it. Fans do not want to heap on their heroes, and their heroes are the guys that make plays on the field. Ben Roethlisberger is, if you're a Pittsburgh sports fan, if you're a Steelers fan, Ben Roethlisberger's been a hero to the city of Pittsburgh and in the sports department for 15, 16 years now. I mean, even his first year, he didn't lose a game until he played the Patriots in the playoffs. His second year, he wins the Super Bowl. Then he wins you another one a few years after that. And he's been a Hall of Fame, a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback for the almost 2 decades. I get it. You don't want to go after that guy because he's your boy. And that's again why I don't call him wash. I don't do that. I pay his respect, but when he makes mistakes, you got to call it out. But it's much easier for fans to call out the coordinator who they don't. Most of you don't know who Matt Canada is. You don't care who Matt Canada is. He's just a guy with a nameplate that says offensive coordinator, and you're like, okay, if things go great, awesome, you'll do that. But if things go bad, you go right to him. It's the same thing for a lot of people with Mike Tomlin. If you don't like Mike Tomlin, you're out there, you're attacking him. But it's not, and I'm not going to say that that's just Steelers fans. I see this across all fandoms. When I was in college, I was in Eagles country, and trust me, there was all sorts of hoopla over Andy Reid and all this other stuff. And as soon as Andy Reid left, they had 1 year Chip Kelly, and they saw, okay, we made a mistake. And now Andy Reid's out here got a Super Bowl with the Chiefs, and he's trying to get him another one. But the point is with with Matt Canada, there are issues. Now, here is where I think the real issue is. When it comes to their chemistry, I think Ben is tired of I think he is showing the physical objections to some of the cuteness of Matt Canada's offense. And I said this in a video last week. I said that I think Matt Canada is trying to be too cute. I said it Monday or Sunday night after the game with the getting in the red zone and calling 3 pass plays before you kick a field goal, or getting in the red zone and calling 2 pass plays in a jet sweep to Chase Claypool when you've got Najee Harris. I do think he's getting too cute. But these guys have to come to some agreement where Ben's going to be comfortable enough to switch things around. Now, we've asked Mike Tomlin this question before, and he's not going to give you all the details. And that's one thing I always love, about who has control to call plays in the offense. We've asked, does Ben have control? Can Ben call whatever he wants? Can he switch whatever he wants if he sees something? And the Steelers aren't going to give you all those answers, because you know what? If they did, then all the teams are going to be like, okay, we can key in on this and know who's making these calls here, and then we can try to discern who's making what calls when, based on when a call is made and when what play is designed up in a certain situation. And then it's easy to tell tendencies. So they're not going to give us that information. They might give us some more insight, a little bit more insight, but not enough to discern who really calls what in what scenario, unless they feel they want to pump something up. Like if Ben does something that's crazy and they want to hype something up, that's another thing. But I truly think the problem here is that the Steelers wanted to be able to run the football this year. They can at times, but they can't consistently. Not with this offensive line. Kendrick Green's getting beat up too much across the middle. They're down to a third string left guard who's really an offensive tackle that's kind of trying to be a versatile guy. Trey Turner's trying to hold up his end of the bargain. You got a rookie left tackle who's trying to figure it out. I actually think he's not doing that bad as people give him give him complaints for. I also think Chukwuma Okorafor is playing solidly. I wouldn't say great, but solidly. But still, when you put that all together, you still don't have the kind of line that you want to dominate, to be able to run the ball when you want to run the ball and how you want to run the ball. And that kind of forces it back into the situation where it's like, hey, this is where you could use Ben Roethlisberger, because if he's on the field and he trusts, hey, this is a situation where I think we can catch these guys in the run, or hey, you know what? We're going to be able to beat these. We can beat these guys with this preset pass play that I can switch into. And again, I've been one that says that Ben, I said all off season, this needs to be the year that Ben takes a back seat, or not a back seat, but at least gets in the passenger seat with the offense, and they get to running the ball. Because last year, I remember, I want to say it was not the Cowboys game, but it was at some point in the second half of the Steelers. No, I think it was actually the Ravens game. The first Ravens game when they were playing and they went up early points. I saw a lot of people saying it's not Randy Fichtner calling the plays anymore. It's Ben Roethlisberger calling the plays. And there was some truth. I thought, like, you know what, maybe there's some truth to that, because Randy Fichtner was boys with Ben Roethlisberger. Again, the first ever Steelers game I covered was a road game in Cleveland, and the first thing I see when I get in through the press entrance is Ben warming up with Randy Fichtner, just throwing the ball around in the hallway. That was his guy. But Randy Fichtner was going to yield to Ben because that was his guy. And Matt Canada don't got that rapport with Ben. So I'm sure Matt Canada is out here saying, hey, I want to run my offense the way that it's supposed to be run, the way I envision it. And when I draw these things up, I'm going to go this way. And Ben Roethlisberger is like, okay, I'm going to give this guy some room. But when the team's not succeeding in those moments, and you saw, like, on the jet sweep to Claypool in the red zone, you see Ben Roethlisberger kind of look back to the sideline like, come on, man. There's serious questions there, and it's not just Ben. If you remember in the Lions game at the time, there was one play in the red zone. It was a goal-to-goal situation. They passed the ball. I believe it was a pass to James Washington, and you see Najee Harris just look to the sideline and do like this. He's like, what? Just give me the ball. This is why you drafted me. And when you're starting to get that from your 39-year-old veteran who's been your franchise quarterback for the last 15, 16, 17 years, however many years Ben's been in the league, I'm losing count. And then you're also getting it from your superstar running back rookie. That is the opposite end of the spectrum in both situations. Maybe that says you should be giving him the ball in those situations. And also maybe it says someone needs to sit Matt Canada down and tell him to stop being too cute. I'm going to keep banging that drum. Now, again, this isn't me saying fire Matt Canada. This isn't me saying something crazy here, but this is me looking at the play calling, looking at the pass charting, and seeing, like, man, there's some consistency here. There's no consistency there. Maybe there's something as to what the Steelers need to do. And I said this on the final word as well. This game, this loss to the Chargers, it can be made to mean something if the offense actually takes a real step forward. If this was just a one-time step forward for one night, it was a waste, it was a loss, this is going to be a really rough end of the season. But if this is the turning point, if this is the place where you see Ben Roethlisberger and he starts playing better for the rest of the season, then you're going to look back at this loss to the Chargers and say, hey, you know what? It was worth it to get that from Ben, even though half the defense was dead from injuries. Because now the Steelers might have an offense again. And here's the thing. The Steelers' offensive line, of course, missing Kevin Dotson. He might come back in a few weeks after he's off of IR. But maybe they're able to get back into running the ball if Ben Roethlisberger is able to throw the ball all around the field. And when he starts doing that, defenses will back off. The Chargers didn't. They kept trying to just take away the run because that's what they were concerned about. But when Ben starts hitting like that, maybe it'll open up the door for teams to back off the run and give Najee Harris the space to do what he does best. But we're not done talking today. We're going to still, of course, talk about the defense. I haven't talked about the defense yet in this show. We will do just that. But first, I got to tell you guys about BetOnline. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this Thanksgiving. It's almost Thursday. It's a couple days away, so you better be sure to have your Thanksgiving food set out, but also make sure your bets are set out for Thanksgiving. There's a ton of football games, all sorts of games that you can capitalize on. Head to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus. And by using the promo code Locked On, that's LOCKEDON, Locked On, you'll receive that 50% welcome bonus when you sign up at BetOnline. It's not just football though. BetOnline has pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, and even your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers at the 2021 season at BetOnline, which is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports, and BetOnline, where we're stuffed with deals on this Thanksgiving. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, wrapping things up now that we're, starting to take a better look at how stuff has gone. I want to take a look at this defense, and I want to look at, real parts of what can the Steelers do on defense other than just praying that injuries, heal up and guys come back, because that's a huge part of it. And I'm not going to hide it. I said this before, you can only say next man up so many times before eventually it's just like, all right, this has to just be known that it's a liability, and you just got to start taking wilder gambles. First and foremost, I do think that there is still a core in this defense that you can count on to hold things together. But that string that's being held together is just a string, and it's not a bunch of strings that you're holding together. It's not a tapestry. It's not a cloth. It's not a quilt. It's just a simple old string right now hung between a few players. And those few players are, of course, Cam Hayward. I actually think Terrell Edmonds has been a big help, and Alex Highsmith, and a little bit of Joe Schobert. But they need more guys to step up. I talked about Devin Bush in the Sunday going into Monday show. Talking about how, listen, Devin, baby, if you ain't gonna be the guy that flies all around the field and breaks up the passes, you at least got to be the guy that flies into the pile and blows up the run plays. He hasn't done that enough. He's done that some, but not enough. Devin Bush, believe it or not, actually has the 5th most tackles on the team right now. The leading tackler right now is Joe Schobert with 67. Behind him is Minkah Fitzpatrick and Terrell Edmonds at 64 and 51. Of course, you don't want your safeties to have the most tackles. You want your defensive linemen and your linebackers to have the most tackles, because usually that means you're stopping the run at a pretty good clip. But right now, Steelers stopping the run towards the bottom of the league actually right now, and that's something that you cannot accept right now. In fact, they are, I believe, the 7th worst rushing defense in the NFL, giving him 126.6 yards on the ground per game. That has to change moving forward. And this is where the challenge does go to Keith Butler, because it's like, okay, you know what? You got blasted with Minkah having COVID, Joe Hayden being out. You haven't had that dominant defensive line that you thought you'd have, because those guys. But now now you have a week to prepare, and you're going up against a divisional opponent that you've seen before. They called you out. They said you quit after the last game. There has to be a plan here to say, hey, you know what? There's some base plays here on defense. There's some base calls here on defense. We know that we can keep the play in front of us and force some tougher third down situations. And then here's some riskier plays. It's like, hey, we'll keep the lid on the defense, but we're going to try to take away this one thing that Joe Burrow does this week with the Bengals, while bringing pressure on him. So it takes him a little bit longer to cycle through to his next progression. And then all of a sudden, you've got a sack or a big play on your end. But you can't get to that point on third down where they're passing. You can call that if you don't stuff the run. And, you're going up against a Cincy offensive line that has talent. A Cincy running back in Joe Mixon, who's definitely talented. You got to find ways to beat to beat that part of this team. Make Joe Burrow have to beat you by himself. Now here's a real question for you though. Who's more important to get back this week? Is it TJ Watt? To me, it is TJ Watt. But is it then Minkah Fitzpatrick? Because then you're also looking, you still need Joe Hayden to help keep everything on the outside locked down. When Joe Hayden's locked up, is lined up on the outside, that's one spot that Minkah Fitzpatrick, when he's in there, he knows he doesn't have to back up. But as I've talked about before in the show, I talked about it weeks ago, last week, and this week, as you know, on the Monday show, I said, the reason that you haven't been seeing Minkah Fitzpatrick with those ridiculous safety interception numbers that he's had in his first 2 years is because he's playing the mop-up role. He's backing everyone up. The Steelers know they don't have Mike Hilton in the slot anymore. They don't have Steven Nelson outside anymore. They got to see how they feel comfortable with these dudes playing in single coverage. And if these guys aren't up to push people around, to be able to blanket people in coverage, then you got to make sure, hey, either you get them off the field, find somebody who does do that, or you put Minkah Fitzpatrick back there. But when Minkah's gone, as he was in the Chargers game, it's going to put even more stress on a Trey Norwood. The more I look back at that play, that deep play at Mike Williams, in the end, I do think that was supposed to be Trey Norwood over there. Cam said it really looks like a cover two, just the way that Cam Sutton was playing it. And if there's a cover two and there's a guy there, Trey Norwood has to be able to run with that guy. Granted, that could have exposed him for other things, but at least you take away the first option to force the quarterback to cycle off of that read to another one, and then hope that your pass rush gets there. That's the problem though right now for the Steelers. They don't have they at least they didn't have the guys to go out there and hit hard, stuff the run, and cover the pass, and rush the passer. You had one guy in Cam Hayward who was just fighting his heart out. You had good cornerback play from Cam Sutton. Your linebackers were but that's why this defense is built around all these different people, because when they all come together, they are a formidable opponent. But they can't be formidable if they don't have their players. Now, whether they'll have some new guys this week, we don't know. TJ Watt was doing some light jogging around, as we saw videotaped in last week's practices at the Steelers facility. We'll see if he is back on duty this week. Chase Claypool returned from a toe injury pretty quickly, and had a pretty good showing. So maybe there's something there. But they need Joe Hayden back to help on the outside. So that's one spot Minkah doesn't have to worry about. They need Minkah to get back off the COVID list. Maybe that happens this week. But they especially need TJ Watt to go after the quarterback. And so that it's not just him, because then Alex Highsmith is going to get more one-on-ones. And we saw what he could do with this past weekend with his one-on-ones. I think Alex Highsmith has the potential to be a bad man for the Steelers. I think that was why they let Melvin Ingram go, because Melvin was going to be a malcontent about not getting his time, not getting his play, not getting ahead of this second-year, third-round pick here. But it's because the Steelers, they believe that Alex Highsmith is that guy. But still, you're going to need him. You're going to need TJ. You're going to need Minkah. You're going to need Cam. You're going to need Joe. You're going to need all those guys on defense to make it not just a string going across the defense and tying everyone together, but a strong rope. A strong chain that's going to keep everyone together in the big moments and to come up with the big plays and help you contain mobile quarterbacks like Justin Herbert. Because best believe, both Joe Burrow, he likes to get out on you a little bit sometimes, but that's going to be coming with Lamar Jackson. You got to be on your A game there. We'll see what Mike Tomlin says. Don't forget, Mike Tomlin speaks at noon on Tuesdays at the Steelers practice facility. I will be there. Being sure to ask questions of him heading into this game. I'm sure he will give us an update on where he sees a lot of the hurt up Steelers and the Steelers on COVID. So stay tuned for that. Go check out the Mike Tomlin press conference. Thank you so much for tuning into the Locked On Steelers podcast. Again, I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. If you want to support this show, if you're enjoying this show, I try my best to give you guys the daily, just straight shooting, just giving y'all what's really going on, my analysis, film review, all those type of things. If you're enjoying the show, please go on YouTube, hit the like button on the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel. Let us know that you're enjoying the show. If you're enjoying the show on audio with Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please go to Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review with a positive comment, and you get a special shout out at the end of the show. We got one from Castile Ja 45 who gave us a 5-star review and says, good balance of analysis and fun. I'm a big sports fan, but usually find sports talk boring and macho posturing. See, exactly. That's the stuff I don't try to do. And obsessed with hot takes. And you know me. You just listen to me give you a whole bunch of straight talk and not a whole lot of hot takes. That's what I do here. So thank you for paying attention to this, Castillo. So my podcast, this is almost all culture and history, but Locked On Steelers has me hooked with Chris's steady, energetic leadership and his rapport with excellent guests. He knows his stuff and keeps it lively and keeps my head on straight whether the Steelers are rising or falling. That's what we try to do here, Castillo. Thank you so much for your 5-star review. We appreciate you. That's why we give you your shout out here on Locked On Steelers podcast. But that's what I try to do. I want to make sure that you guys are excited, but I also want to make sure that you're excited with the proper optimism. And then if you're down, I let you be down. But I'm also going to try and break it back up and say, hey, this is where this guy could turn this around. And this is where this is at. Or give you perspective to say, look, you think this is bad? Guess what? We've seen this over here. So I'm glad that you appreciate it, Castillo. If you appreciate it as well out there, viewer and listener, again, if you're watching on YouTube, like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts with a positive comment. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll have Tony Serino on tomorrow. Then we'll be off for Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. But we will be back on Friday with Jenna Harn with a fresh episode getting you ready for the rest of the week. So, with all that said, don't forget to watch the Mike Tomlin press conference. You'll have Tony and me thoughts on the Wednesday episode.